Our offices are located in Knowledge Park, adjacent to the Penn State Barron campus in Erie. And as you can see, we invest in innovation in a variety of places well beyond tech, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And for some additional information about what Ben Franklin does, what we look for, how we can be supportive, all you have to do is go to that URL at the bottom of the screen, tinyurl.com/ready-to-get-started. All lowercase on the ready to get started. It's a free PDF download. You can see more information there. So let's talk a little bit about the Ben Franklin Technology Partners. We're funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, otherwise known as the DCED, and also funded by payback and exits from the companies that we've invested over the years. So Jill described this pay it forward idea. Companies that we invested in a couple of years ago that are now paying back that investment, or who have potentially exited, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We take that money and invest it in companies today, and then those companies in a couple of years, their payback money will be used to fund the next companies down the road. Ben Franklin has been doing that for about 35 years. Now, we're part of a statewide network of Ben Franklin centers, and we'll talk about that and show you a map here in just a second. So we'll put that on pause until we get to that slide. Now, Central and Northern Pennsylvania is affiliated with Penn State. So when you engage with Ben Franklin CNP, you not only get all of the entrepreneurial and business access from our team, but we also then have access to the 750,000 Penn State alumni across the world. And our goal ultimately is to create an economic impact. What we've found over the years is that for every dollar invested by Ben Franklin has created an almost $5 economic impact to the state. Mostly that's in the terms of jobs. So what do? We invest in tech-based startups and, most importantly, small manufacturers who have a significant Pennsylvania business presence. We provide business support services, which frankly is a lot more valuable to our companies than the capital we provide, but we know that capital is important. We also provide technical assistance and entrepreneurial training through our e-marketing learning center, the Venture Investor Forum, and support with SBIR and STTR grants. I'll allow you to Google that. We connect growth startups to follow-on funding, and we leverage our statewide, national, and really international network to support our companies. One example of the things that we provide is a Google Cloud program for startups. If you're thinking about starting a company or you're accelerating your company and having a partner like Google is part of the plan, and obviously we will work with you to help you determine if it should be. We'll partner with our friends at the Erie Technology Incubator at Gannon to get you enrolled in the Google Cloud program. So what do we look for? The one thing that we look for the most is timing. Is your idea right for the time? Then we always look for a strong management team with some domain experience. Now, we recognize that all companies who come to us may be super strong in one area and have a huge gap in another. That's great. That allows us to go dig into our network and find the people that can be helpful to you. So you don't have to be all things to all people when you start a company or when you're accelerating a company. Frankly, it gives us a lot of confidence when an entrepreneur comes to us and says, I've got great passion for this idea and I'm super smart about it, but I don't know anything about A, B, or C. That actually makes us very comfortable that that entrepreneur understands their strengths and weaknesses, and we can be supportive. We're always looking at a large market with a leverageable revenue model, meaning that you can sell this beyond the corner grocery store or beyond the 10 blocks around your house. And you've got a revenue model that is leverageable, meaning you don't have to sell every single thing. Likely you're going to use some sort of technology to help you do that. It needs to be an innovative product or a service. So what's innovation? Kind of the $64 question. Well, the innovation that we look at is something that has protectable intellectual property or has a significant barrier to entry. If you came to us and said, I have the next great idea, but there's 500 competitors, that's probably not something that we're going to be able to invest in. However, if you came to us and said, I've got the next great idea, there are 500 competitors, and here is how I will protect the intellectual property, and here's the barrier to entry against the others, that is something we're going to be interested in. Personal investment, skin in the game. Sometimes that comes in the form of capital that you've put into the company. Sometimes that means you're all in and you've given up your day job to focus in on this. Obviously, that's probably not the first thing that we want to see you do. We definitely want to make sure that you've taken care of the home front, if you will. But at some point, the entrepreneur has to be all in with their personal investment in time and or capital. And as I mentioned, a full-time commitment. So one of the challenges that Ben Franklin has is, frankly, our name. Technology Partners makes people think that we're all about IT, hardware, apps, and we are. However, as you can see on this slide, and frankly, this is fairly out of date, given that we've made dozens and dozens of investments in hardware companies, in manufacturing companies over the past, really, our whole life. Today, Aaron Lewis from Sphere Brakes is going to be talking about his company and his entrepreneurial journey, and I'll anticipate that Aaron will talk a little bit about his involvement with Ben Franklin, not only capital investment, but also our business support. So why would you seek an investment? Well, first of all, it's to accelerate, right? You can only go so fast if you're bootstrapping and it's just you trying to figure things out. You also get access to strategic partners. So a strategic investment might include someone who's a distribution partner or a manufacturing partner or someone who's a better salesperson than you, and they have a way of partnering with you in a very strategic way to help you move forward. Of course, getting access to smart people, filling the gaps in your company, is another reason to seek an investment. There's the old saying, if you're asking for money, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. It increases your visibility. Let's say your company needs to have a big splash in your market. There's nothing splashier than being able to say, hey, we just got a big investment from the Ben Franklin Technology Partners, Bridgeway Capital, and our local bank, and the Northwest Commission. Wow, that would really increase your visibility a lot. And then probably the most important aspect of this is it allows you to hire talent. While we certainly do and have invested in companies that are sole founders, we are much more comfortable investing in companies that have 2 or potentially up to 3 founders of the company. Not a requirement, but it is one of those boxes that's nice to check. So what can our funds be used for? As I mentioned before, a new and innovative product or process, salaries. In other words, you can use our money to pay for salaries, research and development costs, prototyping materials and supplies, marketing and sales focused for the project. And we really like our money to be used for to create something that's better, faster, and cheaper. And certainly you'll hear all about that in a little bit when Aaron talks about Sphere Brakes. What's also important is what our money cannot be used for. And if these things are part of your project, that's when we will reach out to the Bridgeway Capitals and the private institutions and the Northwest Commissions, the SBA, etc., to see if we can build an entire financial package that makes sense for you. So if you need to buy a building or refurbish a building or rent your space, you can't use our money for those purposes. Equipment or tooling, can't use our money for that. Other physical assets, basically we like to say, except for people, you can't use our money for anything that casts a shadow. We can't utilize our capital for operating or working capital, which, as I mentioned before, if your project requires any of these four components, that's really an opportunity for us to partner with traditional lenders and other economic development resources. And because, as Jill mentioned, we all work together and are actively talking with each other on at least a weekly basis, I will know, TJ will know, Jill will know, some of the other people will know to reach out to us and have that discussion. So specifically, where does Ben Franklin CNP invest? Anywhere in the colored area. Of course, we're in the Northwest section, the orange, but we also have offices and staff in North Central. Our offices there are in State College, the Southern Alleghenies in Altoona, and South Central in Harrisburg. And just to give you an overview of Ben Franklin statewide, there are four, as I mentioned before. In Pittsburgh, the Ben Franklin there is known as Innovation Works. In Bethlehem, it's Northeast PA, and in Philadelphia, it's Southeast PA. And over the past 35 years, collectively, we've created a $25 billion economic impact. Not an exhaustive list, but certainly some of the vast resources that are available in the Northwest region are listed here. More than happy to make this available as a screenshot. But again, working with the Northwest Commission, working with us, working with the other folks on the call today or on the webinar today, can get you access to any of these resources and more. I would really encourage you, if you haven't already, to start your journey with the small business development centers. There's one in Gannon, or excuse me, at Gannon, which actually covers most of Northwest PA and Western PA all the way down to nearly Pittsburgh, and then over to the east at Clarion, the Clarion SBDC, and you can Google them and get access to their information. One of the programs that they put on, which I highly recommend, whether you're an experienced entrepreneur or this is your first time at the rodeo, is a program that's called the First Step. It's really Entrepreneur 101. It's about a 3-hour program. It's a bit like drinking from a fire hose, but the goal of that 3 hours is to really help you understand the entrepreneurial journey, as well as giving you tons of access to resources. And it now makes you eligible for the SBDC free consulting. So I highly recommend looking up the SBDC that's most convenient to you and getting on their First Steps schedule. So how does Ben Franklin invest? First of all, it's competitive. We are privileged to see a lot of companies throughout our day or our week or our month. And so we're always looking for the most compelling, most job creating, most economically impacting companies to invest in. There is a matching component. So if you're bringing $150,000 to the table, we can match that with our $150,000. Now, don't be freaked out. It doesn't mean that you have $150,000 today. It means that over the course of your operating year or our fiscal year, you're going to earn and or have other outside investment and or provide in-kind matching that matches or exceeds what Ben Franklin is providing. Certainly have more details about that as your interest dictates. One of the things that we're very thing that we probably make most comfortable with our investments is that we don't have any fees, we don't have any points, there is no personal guarantee or collateral required. Our interest in your company is secured by our willingness to work and our ability to work with you. We want you to succeed. That's good for us. It's good for the state, and it's good for all of the citizens of Pennsylvania. So we don't take personal guarantees or collateral as we invest. And most importantly, we never say no. Most of the time, it's a yes and. Let's work together. Let's figure things out. So how do we invest? There's a preliminary discussion where you fill out a two-page document called an investment summary. As I mentioned, we're always a yes to either accelerate your idea or refer it out. There's an introductory presentation to our staff. Then there's a business plan, which we review. Then there's consideration by our Ben Franklin board. And then it's very predictable. Let's say you're not ready for an investment today. Every 3 months, we're running through this same process where it's very predictable that there is a quarterly investment period. So sometimes we meet a company and within a week or two, we're on the path to investment. Sometimes it takes 6 months. That's all good. We continue to work with companies to bring them forward. And it is possible to have multiple rounds of funding, up to plus or minus about $500,000. So in phase 1, we're really looking at technical feasibility and product development. Typically, that's about $100,000. In phase 2, it's the market feasibility and go-to-market. Phase 3, there's business growth and expansion. And finally, for phase 4, this is specifically reserved for existing manufacturers that are under some financial stress. They're not completely underwater, but there are issues that our capital and expertise can support. The disbursements are phased, meaning you'll get about 1/4 of our commitment to you, about 1/4 of that each quarter, and then follow-on rounds, as you would expect, are also competitive. So here's who we are. In the Northwest office, there's actually 2 other people who didn't want their picture on here. And this is how you get a hold of me. The easiest way to get hold of me, frankly, is using Twitter. My Twitter handle is @BenFrankBrian. So @BenFrankBrian. That's how you can reach me on Twitter. Please feel free to call my cell phone. There's my email address. And by all means, be sure to download that document that answers additional questions. Thanks for your time. And now let's go to John Bennett from the SBA.
John, is it working for you?
Hello?
Hello, are you able to share your screen, your PowerPoint?
I did. Give me 1 second.
John, what I can do is share my screen if that helps. I have the PowerPoint pulled up. I just got to go to your slide.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, John, I think you should be able to talk. Just kind of let me know when you want me to switch the slides.
Okay. All right. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Bennett. I'm the Veterans Representative for Small Business Administration Pittsburgh office. And I'll give a quick overview about our agency, the U.S. Small Business Administration. It is an independent federal agency that was created in 1953. The Pittsburgh district office covers half the state of Pennsylvania, which consists of 27 counties, from Pittsburgh up to Erie, over to State College, and down to the Pennsylvania-West Virginia border. And as Brian mentioned during his presentation, one of our resource partners are our small business development centers. And the two that cover the Northwest Pennsylvania area are located at Gannett University and at Clearing University Small Business Development Center. All right, without further ado, I'll go on to, in terms of the lending aspect of SBA. For starters, the SBA, we're a federal agency. We're not a lending institution. You can't just contact the office and say, hey, I want an SBA loan. That says the SBA guarantees a portion of the loan through an SBA preferred lender. And those can be found on our website at sba.gov under our capital programs. However, what the SBA can do is the Veterans Advantage Lending Initiative, which started in fiscal year 17 and continued through fiscal year 18. And what it does is waives the fees on SBA loans for anyone who's considered veteran with 51% or greater, honorably discharged veterans, service disabled veterans, active duty veteran eligible through the TAP, active reservists and or National Guard members, or current spouse of any veteran, active duty service member, reservist, National Guard, or the widowed spouse of a service member who died while in service as a result of a service-connected disability. All right, next slide. All right. Savings for those eligible for SBA Standard 7A and Express loans. Until September 30th, 2018, all 7A loans, and this is for everyone including veterans, $125,000 and under. There are no upfront fees on loans for all borrowers. Keep in mind, most SBA loans have something they call an upfront guarantee fee and a maintenance fee. So what this slide is saying that the upfront fee for loans that are $125,000 and under, this is for everybody, are waived. Terms up to 10 years for equipment and up to 25 years for real estate. That has an 85% SBA guarantee. For more information about our 7A loan program, there's our website that's listed there. And also our Community Advantage Loan Program, which their website is listed there as well. Next slide. All right. Now where it kicks in for veterans is item 2 and item 3 on the screen. Until September 30th, 2018, 7A loans from $125,001 up to $350,000. Those fees are reduced by 50% for eligible borrowers. SBA guarantee for 75% on loans $150,001 up to $350,000. SBA Express loans, there are no upfront guarantee fees on all SBA Express loans for borrowers, and there's a 50% guarantee. All right, next. All right, for more information, here's my contact information that's listed on the slide. The easiest way to contact me is to send me an email to my email address was listed above. And then for more information about resources that are located in the Pittsburgh district, there's a link to our our webpage. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to TJ from Bridgeway Capital.
TJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm trying to share my screen here.
Okay. Let me know if you just want me to share the slides.
I think I should have it here. Can everyone see my PowerPoint here?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. First of all, my name is TJ King with Bridgeway Capital. I'm sorry, I was trying to. My apologies, everyone. I'm trying to figure this out here. Okay, here we go. I think there's just a little bit of a delay. All right, my name is TJ King with Bridgeway Capital. I'm the director of the Erie region for Bridgeway. Thank you all for being here this morning. But I wanted a couple things that I wanted to cover today. Basically, what is Bridgeway Capital, and more importantly, how can we help you? First of all, Bridgeway Capital, we're a nonprofit community development financial institution. We're a mission-driven small business lender. We provide financing for startup businesses, existing businesses that are looking to grow, community development real estate projects, other nonprofit organizations. But we are, as a nonprofit, we are a mission-driven organization, and I'll talk to you a little bit later in our presentation about what that means to you. But Bridgeway Capital, a little bit about our history. We've been around for 28 years now. We're based out of Pittsburgh. We cover all 15 counties in Western Pennsylvania. During that 28 years, Bridgeway, we've injected about $145 million worth of capital directly into businesses, real estate projects, and nonprofits throughout Western Pennsylvania. That accounts to a little bit over 1,100 loans to entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and small businesses across Western Pennsylvania. 298 of those loans were to African-American owned businesses, and 398 of those loans were to women-owned enterprises. And with that 1,100, a little bit over 1,100 some loans, we've helped to create or retain 11,000 jobs throughout Western Pennsylvania over the past 28 years. Basically, as a mission-driven organization, our mission is to work to make Western Pennsylvania a thriving region for everybody by promoting economic opportunities and community revitalization. As you can see from our map here, that we cover all 15 counties in Western Pennsylvania, basically from the West Virginia border all the way up to Erie County. We have 3 offices. Our main office is based in downtown Pittsburgh. 3 years ago, we opened up an office in Uniontown, Pennsylvania, to better serve the southern regions of our servicing area. And then in March of 2012, we opened up an office here in Erie to better serve northwestern Pennsylvania. And I've been the director of that office since we've opened back in March of 2012. We work with a variety network of partners, many of those that are presenting here today, such as Ben Franklin Technologies, the SBA, the Northwest Commission. We work with conventional lenders who we partner with, and they refer some of their clients to us. We work with foundations to help with funding that Bridgeway receives to support our lending operations, and we work with governmental agencies such as the USDA and the Small Business Administration. But basically, us being a mission-driven organization, we look to have impact in communities that we represent. So we look to represent underserved populations. Now, what that means is, we look to invest into businesses, real estate projects, and nonprofits that are located in low-income communities. We look to work with minority, women, veteran-owned businesses, businesses that aren't able to obtain traditional, conventional financing based on a number of different reasons, and projects that will improve.
TJ, it's Megan.
Yes.
Your slides aren't advancing. I just wanted to stop you to see if you wanted to go, if you knew that.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I can continue through. I think you probably are able to share the PowerPoint as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. I can do that. I'll try to figure out where you're.
Okay. So sorry, everyone. But basically, we look to invest in projects that improve quality of life in the region, whether that be community development real estate projects that are going to renovate communities, small businesses that will be opened up in low-income areas, veteran, women, minority-owned businesses. So that's what we mean there, as far as the impact that we're looking to have in the region. How can we help you? Most important question is, we can provide financing for startup businesses, existing businesses looking to grow and create living wage sustaining jobs, within Western Pennsylvania, and expansions of existing companies looking to purchase real estate, second locations or first locations for that matter. But to kind of go over a couple, what our loan products are, the types of loans that we can provide. First, we can provide entrepreneur loans. These are your true startup loans. Typically these are loans up to $100,000 for startup and early stage businesses. The use of these funds can be used for purchasing inventory, equipment, startup working capital, in some instances, real estate. Secondary, we can look to work with existing businesses that are looking for a cash injection for inventory, for working capital to hire people. And typically the terms of these loans, we can offer up to a 6-year term with fixed rate financing. Here we, as mentioned before, we partner with the Small Business Administration. We're a SBA microloan lender. This is where you typically see those types of loans. Those are loans up to $50,000, and they would be for your typical startup that is in need of startup working capital and inventory and some of the other uses that I had mentioned. We also provide what we call our growth loans. These are typically loans to existing companies that are looking to grow, whether that be permanent working capital, purchasing equipment, real estate. Oftentimes with these types of loans, we can actually either provide 100% of the financing or partner with a traditional bank or another economic development organization such as Ben Franklin or the Northwest Commission. But primarily for these types of loans, we want to work with businesses that are looking to create jobs, living wage sustaining jobs throughout Western Pennsylvania. We can provide financing to nonprofit organizations. These are typically mostly social and human service nonprofits, but we provide financing for real estate purchases, credit reserve funds, bridge loans for government fundings or grants, or permanent, term loans for permanent working capital. Another way that Bridgeway looks to invest in the underserved communities, we provide financing for commercial real estate. These are typically larger community development real estate projects that are going to improve living conditions throughout the region. This could be access to affordable housing throughout Western Pennsylvania, mixed use real estate properties that are going to have a benefit, a financial and social benefit, throughout communities throughout Western Pennsylvania. Bridgeway Capital, we also, as a nonprofit mission-driven lender, we don't look just to lend money to individuals, businesses, and organizations and walk away. We actually we provide technical assistance through our business education program. With that, we work with 22 consultants throughout Western Pennsylvania. These are accounting firms, website development firms, human resource consulting firms to be able to offer services to you and your businesses. A lot of times at no cost, or we can share in the cost. We get some funding through the SBA to provide those services, and local funding sources as well. So I apologize for you not being able to see my my PowerPoint, but like I said, my name is TJ King. You can reach me. The best way to reach me is either to call my office here in Erie. My number is 814-451-1172, or by email at tking@bridgewaycapital.org. So I appreciate everyone being on the call today, and thank you for your time. And I'd like to hand the presentation off to Aaron Lewis from Sphere Brakes.
Thanks, TJ, for the handoff. Megan, just keep yours up. It'll just be easier. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, that just makes it easy. So a little bit about myself. I was a military officer, a retired military officer. Spent about 12 years in the military, all in the Army and National Guard. Served in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and started off as a field artillery officer and became an infantry officer over the course of my career. And so what I'm going to present today is basically a journey that I've taken over the next few slides on everything. I started from the ground floor, literally having an idea on a napkin, piece of paper, what have you, and bringing it all the way through 5 rounds of different funding venues and being operational today. And then I'm going to leave you all with some tips on the journey and things to consider as you start and grow your business. So basically, I conceived the sphere brake technology in Kuwait, waiting to go into Iraq. And for the first couple of years, I bootstrapped the development and validation. And as Brian stated earlier, I did receive Ben Franklin funding back in 2012 and 2013. And the funds were very specific. They were used for validation of our technology in partnership with the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center and Carnegie Mellon University. And when we validated our technology in a virtual environment, we were able to then go back to Ben Franklin, ask for more funds, going through the whole process, of course, to build some full-scale prototypes and then test on industry-accepted equipment like dynos in Detroit to validate our product performance that we saw in the virtual environment. So we used Ben Franklin very early on for in the investments. It wasn't like the phase investments that Brian explained. Our investments were smaller. I think our first round was like 30,000, and then we asked for like 50,000. So it wasn't the 100, 200 deal. So Ben Franklin's very open to the needs of the business and what you really need to accomplish, and that's how you maximize value to dollar. So when there came a point where we brought the technology far enough along to get interest from a major truck OEM, which is Volvo Truck and Mack Trucks, and they gave us a letter of intent. And with that letter of intent, I was able to raise private equity and pursue Sphere Brakes full time. So during the whole bootstrapping process, I was working full time at GE, running 3 businesses there. I was also an officer in the military. I commanded a headquarters company, and I was also in grad school. I don't really know how I did all that, but anyways, I was able to quit everything. That's what I quit everything and pursued this full time with that private round of funding because I was fully committed, invested, and believed in this technology and what it could do. And then, there's some significant sacrifices, not only, pay, a significant reduction in pay that I was no longer receiving, but I also didn't have benefits either. So I'll talk more about that too in a little bit. And since then, that was in 2016 when I was able to quit everything and do this full time. Since then, we developed the first Sphere service brake and driveline retarder for an actual Mack truck. We installed that and tested that at the Larson Transportation Institute in Penn State. Just another benefit of working with Ben Franklin Tech Partners. I'll talk more about that relationship in the next few slides. And we performed field testing with Team Hardinger at the over-the-road fleet based in Erie to validate our technology over the road. And, we're currently working on future opportunities with several OEMs in the heavy truck space and also with the National Hot Rod Association in drag racing. Next slide. So here's the picture on the left is our Mack truck with our technology installed on it, hauling a 50,000-pound load in Pittsburgh. And we did a 30-day field test with Team Hardinger. So this is real verifiable data, leveraging partnerships locally for the benefit of developing new technology and seeing what kind of data we can get and ensuring that what we say it can do in the lab and in a testing environment happens in the real world. And then on the right, those are our top fuel dragsters. They go about 336 miles an hour and 1,000 feet. So they take off at 5 Gs and they stop at 5 Gs. However, when things go bad, if like the driver gets knocked out or the chutes don't deploy, they need a backup brake system that can generate a lot of torque in a much smaller package due to weight constraints. And that's where the NHRA is exploring our sphere brake technology. It's going to be a safety device on these vehicles, and we already have teams signed up, and we're kind of going through that whole development and testing process. Next slide. So to address a need and requirement for the military, we created Sphere Brake Defense. Now, Sphere Brake Defense is a veteran-owned small business, and it was created a few months ago to strategically align with all of the effort we have going in the government for Department of Defense contracts. And we're currently working on a phase 1 SBIR project with the Marine Corps, basically scaling our brake technology from Mack trucks to military vehicles. We are a member of the National Advanced Mobility Consortium. And so a couple of things here, you know, going through the veteran-owned small business certification process is very laborious, and it can be very aggravating. It took me 3 or 4 months to get through it. So if any of you are interested in going through that process, feel free to reach out. I can coach you, I can help coach you along with the PTAC to get through that process. Joining consortiums as a veteran is very important. It gets you an inside track to some potential industry partners or potential customers. There are costs to joining consortiums, but the long-term benefit is worth it. There's also some things that people don't tell you about when you start a company, or some things that you're not quite sure of. For doing contracts with the government, there are cybersecurity requirements. One that's very intense is the NIST 800-171 conformance. It's all based on cybersecurity, which is everything. It touches everything in a company. And it's just a requirement. If you do any business with the government as a prime contractor or subcontractor, you have to meet those cybersecurity requirements. That costs money. So that has to be accounted for in budgets. The DCAA, that's basically the accounting audit agency for the government. They will come in and audit your books. That all costs money. And we're also pursuing ISO certification for quality. So these last 3 bullets, these are just some of the things that really, they kind of snuck up on you. You know, you're doing all these business development, you're pursuing all these business development opportunities as you're trying to grow and sell your product or service. But there's all this back end work that needs to take place in order to qualify and quantify your product and service with certain customers. And it takes up a lot of time, and a lot of people, entrepreneurs, don't account for these costs in this time when they're developing their plans. Now, I knew about being in manufacturing and coming from manufacturing. I knew a lot about the accounting audit process and the ISO processes. But the NIST cybersecurity snuck up and bit us. So we're going through that process now. Again, when you guys, if any of you want to do business with the government, feel free to reach out. I can share some lessons learned. It's very challenging, but it's worth it in the long term. Next slide. So the real reason why I'm privileged and blessed to be able to share some of my lessons learned, some of the good, the bad, and everything in between with fellow veterans. And these are just some of the questions and talking points that you need to consider as you start and go through just running a business from a finance perspective. And again, I went through 5 rounds of funding to get to where I am today, and there's 5 different flavors to all that. So there's just, up front, do you want to take on debt or give up equity? Can you afford debt? Can you afford equity? It's, do you have immediate cash flow to pay off the debt, or do you need to do a play on equity to get that financing in place and not worry about having to pay back anyone very soon. That was one of the main reasons why we courted with Ben Franklin very early on, because I wasn't in a position to take on debt, but I was in a position to work with a company where there really wasn't any strings attached other than, hey, you got to pay us back if this is successful. And that was really intriguing to me, and it was something that you just don't get anywhere else. You have to remember, you can't do this all yourself. It relies on a huge team, a huge network. You know, I wouldn't be here today without the support of Ben Franklin. And as Brian spoke earlier, they go beyond just financing. Right now, I'm using them for HR, for hiring. I'm using them for auditing, books, for accounting. Because as you'll know, when you get into some of these additional requirements of running a business, like the DCAA process, a lot of CPAs are not equipped to handle the DCAA, the accounting audits that the government has set out for contractors. So they've stepped up in a huge way in a lot of different avenues. There's also Ben Franklin's helped us secure track time at the Larson Transportation Institute. They've introduced us to other folks at the Applied Research Lab, which got us in the door with the Department of Defense, and they got us in front of Volvo Truck because Volvo Truck has a great relationship with Penn State. First and foremost, you got to be coachable, and you have to be willing to learn. You have to learn every day. On top of being coachable and kind of doing things, you know, that you're told to do or recommended to do, you need to be doing your own learning and continuous growth as, you know, as a leader or as an expert in the field that you're trying to run your business or develop your business. In a case in point, after I was able to pursue this full time, I got my license as a project management professional, but I also do a lot of reading. I try and keep current with all the marketing trends and sales trends. And that really shakes out to be about like 20 to 25 books a year. So, I mean, that's kind of what it takes to know what all the leverage that you can pull in the processes that you can leverage to be as efficient as possible. You have to be okay with failure and be able to recover quickly when someone says no. So I'm going to share a golden nugget of information. When someone says no, which happens quite frequently for me, you just ask a simple question, why? And 9 times out of 10, they'll give you a whole laundry list of why they think that your technology or process is not going to work. All that is an action item list to prove them wrong. It's not an ego thing. It's literally, this is what I need to do to turn that no into a yes. And it may not be a yes for that person, but the next time I approach someone, all this stuff is going to be done, and it'll make that process easier. And that has worked very, very well for our development cycle for Sphere Brake technology. You have to leverage as much free service as you can. This includes the SBDCs. It includes universities. I do a lot of work with universities locally in Northwest PA. You know, there's the new collaborative between Penn State, Edinburgh, and Gannon. You know, Penn State focuses on product development. Gannon focuses on business planning and financial forecasting and competitive analysis. And Edinburgh focuses on product packaging and logos and brands and that kind of thing. So you can literally take a full turn through universities without paying a dime. And that's the kind of resourcefulness that you need to maximize the dollars that you receive. And there's also the free resources with strategic partners. And, you know, I don't need to hire an HR administrator. I can have the HR team within the Ben Franklin Tech Partners do most of that work. And I can be the administrator, which is a lot less work than I originally anticipated on my end, which helps me out tremendously. And that I don't have to worry about overhead for hiring on that additional employee. So you also have to find a partner that can go the distance. And every step of the way, that was the first question I would ask myself with my mentors. Can this partner go the distance? Ben Franklin, absolutely, they can go the distance. They proved it with many other companies. And they also have the network in the event that, hey, we don't know the answer, but I know exactly who has that answer. And they've been with us through our entire 7-year journey. And they continue to unlock value for us as we grow. So they're absolutely able to go the distance. When we courted private investors, we asked the same question: can they go the distance? And I could tell you, our private investors have stepped up in so many ways beyond capital financing. It's much better to get $2 million from a private investor who can unlock $10 to $12 million over a long period of time, or get you out of trouble very, very quickly to keep the process and the dream alive, versus someone who can give you $10 million and do none of the above. So when you go out and look for partners, don't get fixated on the numbers. You have to get fixated on, is this a good marriage for the long term? Are they suitable for the next round, through the next round of funding? Those are all some of the questions you have to ask yourself. And can they provide a lot more value than the money that they bring to the table? The other key thing is objective mentorship. You don't need a friend as a mentor or a family member as a mentor. What you need is someone who can tell you you're out of your mind, and you can take that in and receive it very well. You need someone in your court who's got your interest in mind. So mentorship is not an investor per se. Now, Ben Franklin, they provide mentorship and coaching. It's part of their business model. And early on, Roy Campbell, who's not part of Ben Franklin anymore, he retired. He was one of my key mentors. He was very objective, and he really groomed my young entrepreneurship journey and made it very successful today. But there's other mentors out there. The coolest mentors you could find is someone who's willing to offer up free advice, who's been in your shoes with no strings attached. And one of the early mentors I had was someone who used to run a brake company here in Erie. And, we have lunch pretty much every quarter. I'll go just have lunch and we'll just talk, and we go through a lot of stuff, and, it's all free and it helps. And he has no skin in the game. He's completely objective, and he's not afraid to tell me like it is. And that's what you need. Also, along with that, don't believe everything everyone tells you. If it's kind of hard to say no when the person is giving you, the person holding the purse, the money, is telling you to do something. You have to be willing to say, no, we can't do it this way. And that's really challenging, but it has to happen. If you're a leader in a startup or an entrepreneurship journey, and you have the company's best interest in mind, you have to be willing to look at everything that comes in, recommendations, decisions, networking. It's like, is this the right way of doing it? Is what this person telling me the truth, or is it biased? What's the reasoning behind it? I've had mentors tell me several things that just were flat out not true. They weren't telling me like it was a bad thing. It just it was some recommendations that they offered up based on some of the beliefs that they had within the auto industry. After I did some due diligence, I realized, that's not in our best interest, and it's not going to work, and it's just not true for our technology. So even though someone has a title or they have the money, you have to be able to stand up and say, no, this is why we can't do that, or we shouldn't go in this direction, or these are the facts that support my argument. You got to stay focused. I can't tell you how many times people have come in who I've pitched and briefed on our technology, say, oh, Sphere brakes would go great in this vehicle application, or it would go great in this industry or that industry. From day one, especially when we started in the heavy truck industry, it's always been about the heavy trucks and unlocking value for those very specific niche markets, because it's far better to get very far along and well established into one market segment than to spread your money all over the place into 10 different market segments and have no stronghold whatsoever. So you have to stay focused. Say, yep, that's a great idea. Write it down in your memory, but stay focused on the task at hand. The best way I do it is I break everything up into projects. It's kind of by nature because I'm a project manager. And that's how I take on the big mountain. You know, I take it one face at a time. You have to stay protected. You need to have attorneys, you need to have patents, you need to have accountants. These are all people much smarter than me. Surround yourself with smarter people. In fact, I have 4 attorneys to help run both of my companies. And in fact, if I had them all in the same room for like an hour, it'd be over $2,000. So I use them when I absolutely positively need them. That's where having a good partner comes into play as well. If you can get answers from your partners before having to resort to attorneys, it helps your cause. It definitely doesn't hurt your pocket as much. And keep as much ownership as you can for as long as you can. Again, I've been blessed to retain a significant amount of equity through the development and creation of our companies. And that's not always the case, but that's another good reason why you want to use free resources for as long as you can, like the SBDC and Ben Franklin and Bridgeway Capital, to really retain ownership of your baby for as long as you can. And then finally, you never quit. There's always an answer. There's always a way. If there's a will, there's a way. It's going to be challenging, but getting tied to strategic partnerships, getting tied to SBDCs, you bring a problem to 2 or 3 of those organizations, and you're going to have an answer fairly quickly. And it's a way to keep moving forward, to keep the dream alive. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Megan. And again, I thank you all for your time. And you can reach me at aaronlewis@spherebrakes.com. I'll type it in the chat menu.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Now is the time for any of you that have questions. You can ask our presenters. I'm going to switch it up a little bit since there's only several of us on right now. You can either ask via the chat box using, texting in there, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question. We have several minutes for questions, so if anybody has any. All right, well, if there are no questions.
Megan, it's Jill.
Okay.
I just want to chime in, obviously not a question, but Aaron, very impressive. I've been doing this for a very long time and have worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and the way you laid out your experience was really impressive to me. I appreciate that you mentioned the PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is housed here at the Northwest Commission, and talking about the perseverance that needs to exist to be an entrepreneur. And I was just really, really impressed with how you presented that. So thank you for that.
All right, I just want to thank everybody for coming to today's training, and each of the presenters. Thank you. I have this recorded, so it will be available on the Northwest Commission's website, and I'll also be emailing everybody to give information for the next training. So thank you, everyone.